Hi, my name is Dave. Today we're going to look at the TS65 Altaz version. This is the same identical scope, 65mm, 900mm focal length telescope. But this one came out about a year later on the Altaz mount. The Altaz mount I think is quite rare. I mean, both of these scopes are very rare, at least in the United States. You never see them. They weren't imported by anybody. They're very heavy. It cost me a fortune to have these scopes shipped from Japan. So there's a reason you don't see many of these around. It's not because they're low quality. Far from it. These are really high quality, superb, classic telescopes. Anyway, the Altaz mount is unbelievable. I mean, look how overbuilt this thing is. This thing is like a tank, I tell you. Here's the locking mechanism for the altitude right there. And it's not just a screw on a bearing kind of thing. This is a clamping lock, a true clamping lock. Really, really high quality. The slow motion is a limited tangent slow motion here for altitude. But on azimuth, it has the full, all the way around. It's got a worm gear and a worm wheel all the way around. The locking mechanism, I don't know how many times you would actually use this. In practical use, you probably would just drive it like so and never even cinch this down. But this thing, you're going to have to cinch this down all the time. You get it up there to an angle. You've got to, if you don't lock it down, look at that, see, it goes pretty good. Anyway, so you're going to cinch it down, and then you'll have the altitude slow motion. It's got the diminutive little 5x25, which, you know, I say diminutive, but it's adequate. It's in a Takahashi, a 5x25 equals a 6x30 and something else. So it's a good high quality little finder. 900mm focal length, real nice focal length. It's you know, people buy these little short guys like that, the TS65P. I've got one of those, and it's wonderful scope, very compact, very portable, but you need all sorts of Barlows and stuff to see anything. With this scope, you can see with native eyepieces, I mean maybe a 10 or a 5mm eyepiece, you can see belts, bands on Jupiter, and you can see the rings of Saturn very nicely. So this is a real good focal length. 900mm is very, very nice. And boy, is this thing built. These did not come with any kind of a box, as far as I can tell. So it doesn't have any wooden box, and I don't think they came with any such thing. But it's a really, really nice scope. For comparison, here we have the two TS65s set up next to each other. These are the original Takahashis. This is the first one, 1967, came out. This was the first Takahashi with the Takahashi name on it. This was arguably the second one because it's slightly different. It's the same scope, TS65, 65mm, 900mm focal length. But this one's on the Altaz base. Another distinction between these two scopes is the TS65 original has a nameplate right here on the focuser. This one doesn't have it on the focuser, instead it's on the mount itself. So that's a slight difference between the two. Both of these scopes have absolutely perfect optics. They're superb. They have identical diffraction patterns, inside and outside focus, and except for that slight variation that you expect because of color, there'll be a little bit of blue or red or whatever, different colors in the diffraction patterns, but other than that, absolutely perfect. So Takahashi, apparently from the get-go, started with perfect optics. One downside to this mount is that this is all one integrated piece from here right on up. You might technically be able to take off the cradle, but even that is bolted on. It's really not intended that you remove that. So this is all one piece. When you're putting this together, trying to hold that and put on the legs and stuff is a bit tricky. So that's one downside to this. The equatorial mount separates right about here, so you have the base and the tripod separate from the head itself. This has the capture kind of a locking nut here. So you have to, this thing comes off and you have to try and, if you were going to change this thing, you have to do that, and you have to find this thing. This is hard enough for me to do in a well-lit, warm room, let alone at night, in the dark. Anyway, but of course you would probably leave these on permanently. They probably wouldn't ever leave the scope. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at the TS65 Altaz version. Thank you very much for watching.